And good afternoon. Welcome to the Nikki Maduro Show. Of course, Nikki working at her second job, but we are here to hold down the fort. And thank you for being here. Of course, right off the bat, first thing you can do to help us out is click that like button. It makes a difference. So thank you for that. And it's totally free. Before we get going with the show, I do want to let you know that you can find us at thenikkimaduroshow.com, thenikkimaduroshow.com. Patreon link, PayPal link, merchandise link, all there ready for you in one nice little convenient place. A lot has happened, as you heard Mark mention, in Russia with kind of a revolt, if you will. But I'm really excited today to bring on a friend, a coworker, a brilliant talk show host, and a radio personality that many of you know, love, and miss so much. It is Pat Thurston. Welcome to the show, Pat Thurston.
Hi, Kimmy. I want to know what the bottles of wine are doing behind you.
Oh,
Is this what you do when you're
this is
about
what
to
I do.
broadcast?
This is my new job, Pat. This is my new job. This is the Mark Thompson Why Are You Yelling Red from Tenuta Vineyards in
Oh,
Livermore.
what a riot!
And this is the Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson Pinot Grigio?
Oh, I
And of
love
course,
that.
Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore does sponsor some newscasts that I do over on the Mark Thompson Show. They haven't sponsored the Nikki Maduro Show yet. So I
And
like to keep my
and
little wine bottles.
you have not opened them yet. I see.
Here, I have opened others, but not those.
I see.
Yes. The Why Are You Yelling Red is really excellent, by the way.
That's very funny.
Yes. So first of all, you're blonde.
Oh yeah. See, I'm letting my hair go gray because
Okay.
I'm old, and so I should. But I hate it. So I'm kind of transitioning. So it's blonde, and the gray peeks out, and I kind of like that. So
Okay.
I'm working on being who I really am.
I like it. I think it looks really nice.
Yeah, well, it's it is what it is. You do what you can do when you get up there in the years.
So you texted me this morning and you said, I want to talk about what's going on in Russia. You've got this guy with the Wagner force
Right.
who I had never heard of before, but I guess I'm not really delving deep into what's happening with the Russian military.
Yeah.
And he decides he is not going along with what Putin has to say anymore and is going to march on Moscow, but
Mhm.
then doesn't and says, oh, it was just a protest. How
There's so
long do you
many.
think he gets the radioactive underwear or the window treatment?
I think it may be the window treatment. I don't know how
Yeah.
many high rises they have in Belarus. So I there are a few things that are interesting here. First of all, we know very little about the truth behind this situation, but we know a few things. One thing, and I think it was Tony Blinken who said this, when we knew that they were planning to march on Moscow, we anticipated that there was going to be a lot of bloodshed, and they anticipated, I'm talking Wagner, that there was going to be a lot of bloodshed. What they thought was going to happen was, as they were marching toward Moscow, that the people would resist them, that the people would be fighting them and supporting the regime that's in Moscow right now. And they didn't. They they met them, and they loved them, and they were cheering them on. And so this was a shock sort of to everybody. And it's one of the reasons that a lot of people are saying Putin is weakened by this, because the people showed support for those who were revolting against him. So there's that. And I find that to be, really fascinating. Another aspect of this, and you may remember Stephen Hall, who appeared on my show several times when we were on the other station. He's the former bureau chief in Moscow for the CIA. And within 2 months of the Russian invasion, he was telling me that the people behind Putin, his key advisors, the people closest to Putin, hated this invasion. And that if Putin goes down, which he anticipated he would, that it would be from within. That it wouldn't be
Oh.
because Ukraine attacked Moscow or the US and NATO got involved and went after Putin, but that his own people would be the ones who brought him down. And those people would be the people the closest to him, including the FSC, his security forces. He thought that the FSC would probably turn on them. Another aspect of this is If this revolt had succeeded, if they had marched into Moscow, and if people had turned on Putin, which was a potential, if they had turned on Putin, who would be left in charge? If it was, what's his name, Poroshenko or whatever it is, if it was him, he's a Nazi, man. He is
Yeah.
not a good
These are
person.
bad people. These are bad
These are
people.
really bad people. And
Yeah.
then the big thing that I saw today, which is what made me say to you, let's talk a little about Russia, is that General, I think he's a two-star. I think he's a major general, but I didn't look it up. I'm not sure. And I believe his name is Mark Hertland. Saw him on CNN this morning. And then I also saw somebody repost something that he had posted this morning about Russia. And one of the things that he's warning us about is that this was an outlying militia group not under the control of the military apparatus in Moscow. They were more successful than the real military, but they weren't that successful. But he said the United States needs to be cautioned to pay attention to this. And he talked about Blackwater.
Yeah.
He talked about Iraq. He was in Iraq. And he said Blackwater made a mess of an already messy situation. The chaos became more chaotic. That they were, and this was something that we talked about, till we were blue in the face at the time it was going on, that when you have a privatized military, and this was the brainchild of Dick Cheney, who was involved with Halliburton, of course, and then he had to, step back from that in order to become the VP. But when he was the Secretary of Defense under the previous Bush, George the First, he began the privatization of the military. And those of us who have served, those of us who are veterans, have resented it forever. We hate the fact that they're bringing mercenaries in to do the jobs that the U.S. military is trained to do, including providing security to VIPs. They travel into these areas where you've got the United States military, and instead they bring in these mercenaries, these guns for hire. They bring those people in to provide the security. It's the most bizarre thing. But the biggest part of it is they never were accountable to anybody. They weren't in the United States, so they weren't beholden to U.S. law. They were involved in a war zone. We weren't going to respect Iraqi law. And they were not part of the United States military, so they were not covered under the UCMJ. That's the law.
Rules of military justice. Yeah.
Yeah. And so so they were renegades. Did what they wanted to do, made a fortune off of it. But this is the first time I've heard somebody in a position as high as his, somebody in the command structure who was there on the ground, who came out and said, this is one of the most dangerous things a country can do, is to privatize their military. And then he said, pay attention to this group and what they've been able to accomplish, and how there was the potential they could bring Putin to his knees. We still don't know how much Putin has been damaged by this, or the governmental structure, or the military and their morale has been affected by this. And then he linked to an article that I believe it was Time Magazine had done, that pointed out the folly of these guns for hire, and pointed out more specifically that now Blackwater wants to get involved in Ukraine. And what they want is to build the weaponry in Ukraine. And they want this to be a billions of dollars venture for Eric Prince. He's the brother of Betsy DeVos, the former education secretary. Eric Prince wants to be the guy who controls the military action in Ukraine to support those soldiers. And he warned us against it, that this is a road to fascism. I mean, it's remarkable what's going on here, and the lessons that we can learn from it. But I don't know how many people are paying sufficient attention to be able to really learn those lessons and then adopt them into what's going on here in this country.
Do you think that what happened with Yevgeny Prigozhin makes
Thank you.
Prigozhin makes Vladimir Putin look weak, Or
Yeah.
do you think that because he immediately did a backtrack and said, "Oh, nope, I'm just protesting
Uh-uh.
and my bad, I'm sorry,"
Yeah.
that he backed off so quickly? Does that give more legitimacy
I
to
don't think so.
Putin's attack on Ukraine?
I don't think so, and we still don't know what was all behind this. There could have
Mhm.
been so many motivations for this to happen, and when it didn't go the way they thought it was gonna happen with all the bloodshed, that makes you wonder, what really was their intent, and it was very quick a short period of time before he adopted the talking points of the Kremlin, and
Yeah.
so that makes you wonder, but does it make Putin look strong? Hell no. I mean, for one thing, his head of the military, we have no idea where that guy is. The people did not support Putin. They supported the revolt that was close to Moscow, close to arriving in Moscow. And whatever deal he reached with Belarus in order to go to Belarus, who knows? The weird thing about it is that the members of Wagner now have agreed to do something that Putin has been pushing them to do, and that is to sign on to the Russian military. I don't know how that's going to go. I don't. Is there another plan
Mhm.
here? Is there a plan to become insurgents within the military and to get those people also to be part of a revolt, and that they're going to start this whole thing over again? I don't know. Was what's his name? Prashenko was
Prigozhin,
Prigozhin.
Yevgeny Prigozhin.
He was
Yeah,
very close to Putin.
yeah.
So, was this something that he coordinated with Putin as Putin was testing the support of the people and he was willing to sacrifice Russians with, bloodshed to see how much support, and that if there was an attack on Russian soil, even if it came from Russians, that Putin thought that would rally his people to support country and Putin? I don't know. I don't know.
It seems to me if there's so much chaos and turmoil within,
So much.
that it's hard to then do the fight on the outside of your country because you're so focused on controlling the factions within, but I don't know.
Well, you do know because you've got common sense, and because and now we're hearing that Ukraine is making inroads now because there
Yeah.
is this chaos, there's this confusion, and there's confusion among the troops, and many of the troops don't wanna be there anyway. It's a weird thing. In the Wagner Group, it's not loyalty to Mother Russia, it's not loyalty to Putin, it seems to be loyalty to Wagner.
Yeah.
And that, again, is one of the dangers of having these groups that are not an official part of the government being involved in these military actions where they have all of this power. I do think that there are a lot of people, and they already have, there are a lot of people who have been conscripted by Russia who did not want to fight, who don't understand the fight, they don't want anything to do with it. There are a lot of those people who are now fighting for Russia, but they don't want to be there. If Wagner was able to infiltrate these units, with the blessing of Putin, because now they're
Yeah.
signing in to be a part of it. I don't know if they're that clever, but if they were able to do that, could they then promote insurgency from within military ranks so that you got a portion of the Russian military behind, another attack? And there is some intelligence that indicates the plan includes a follow-up attack. I don't know. There's so much that we don't know about this.
Yeah.
There's so much that's confusing. There's so much that it could be and it isn't. And when you're talking about things that are not overt, but they're covert things that are going on, it's really hard to know what the facts are. And so we begin to speculate and we write our own spy stories, which is kind of
Mm.
what I've been doing in my head. But it
Well,
is fascinating. And I think that the Ukrainians, and especially Zelensky, I think they were really excited about this and that they thought that it actually may take Putin out of the picture. There were a lot of reports that said Putin had fled the country. One said in
mm,
Uruguay, one said, to his big old, I don't know, $1 billion house that he has where he keeps his girlfriend
right.
and their children. I
In the
mean,
bunker. Yeah.
yeah, so you just don't know. There's so much we don't know, Kim, and how it's gonna turn out, we also don't know. It's not over. That's what I think. It's not over yet.
No, I was just reading this article out of CNN talking about how the West has to now consider the possibility of a Russian political collapse. And I wonder, we have all talked so much about how what a bad guy Putin is, which is true. But is it a case of the devil you know versus the devil you don't know? Because
Yes and no,
if
but
you look
yes
at
and no.
a potential political collapse, then you've got somebody like this guy, this Przgeni guy,
Right,
coming in, and there's nuclear,
right,
weapons there, and
right.
who knows who these people are that could come in and do this. So I don't know what your thoughts are on all that.
Well, who was Putin most afraid of in terms of being able to oust him legally? What isn't his name Navalny, who is in
Right.
prison right now?
Hmm.
Who posed a political threat to Vladimir Putin. Let's get him out of prison. Let him take over. I mean, you want the Russian people to decide, to be in charge of their own destiny. They haven't really been able to do that. I mean, this is an autocratic regime that Putin has, and their windows do fail way too frequently. And then there's that whole poison thing, which seems to be his method of assassination that he prefers. But he's no stranger to killing people. He doesn't care about killing people. He doesn't care about taking out political opponents. And so any sort of speaking against the policies of Vladimir Putin, it's met very harshly. You don't have free speech in Russia. They may say you do, but you don't have free speech in Russia. So, what's going to happen here? I don't know. And you're right. There is always that question of the devil you know versus the devil that you don't. But how
Right.
about we just leave the devils behind? And how about, maybe somebody who really cares about Mother Russia and who doesn't want to take over as a dictator, but really wants to help lead the people in a way that's beneficial to them and potentially to the world. I don't know what's going to happen in that regard either. That's one of the things. It's one of the unknowns that I'm sure our intelligence services are, and the White House, I'm sure
Yeah.
that they are intimately involved in and very, very concerned with. Now, what's going on in the Congress should echo all of that. But we have a Congress right now, particularly the House of Representatives, that is so broken that they are much more concerned with Hunter Biden's laptop than they are with any sort of legislating or world affairs. And
Yeah.
they seem to be lovers of, the dictators, just like their fearless leader was and is. So, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows what role the United States is going to play? Who knows what role the United States already did play? The US is saying, oh, we had nothing to do with this. Our fingerprints are not on this at all.
Yeah.
This came from within. I
Yeah.
tend to believe that only because of the conversations I had with Stephen Hall so long ago, that this was anticipated, that so many of the oligarchs, so many of the inner circle, so many of the security forces, the FSB, I think is what they are,
Hmm.
they were opposed to all of this, and no love lost on Putin. So, I mean, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know.
Let's switch topics because I haven't had a chance to, and if you don't feel comfortable commenting, let me know.
Okay.
But I haven't talked to you really about the whole Trump indictment thing and how you've felt watching these indictments come down and what you think is going to happen here.
I think there are going to be a lot more. I think that Jack Smith is not scared of Donald Trump in the least. This is a guy who has brought down dictators previously, people who are a lot tougher than Donald Trump. This is a guy, who worked at The Hague, doing these international criminals. He's not afraid of Donald Trump. And I think that there are going to be more indictments. And when the evidence begins to be revealed, I think that there are people who are Trump supporters or on the fence with Trump who are going to run screaming from him. Are those going to be members of Congress? Well, there's a handful of them that it will not be, because they're, as fascist or wannabe fascist as Donald Trump is. So, yeah, I think Donald Trump is going down. I do. He can run from prison.
He
He can
can,
hold office from prison. He can
and
do
he can pardon himself, which is crazy.
that.
Now, I was
Well,
talking to
we
John
don't
Roth.
know if he can.
I was
Oh, does
talking to
John think that he can?
John Rothman thinks he won't go to prison. He thinks that whatever
Hmm.
happens to him, even if he's convicted, that there will be a commutation or some type of pardon, regardless of who wins the election, Democrat or Republican, that you can't have a former president of the United States incarcerated.
I
And
hope
so
that's I hope that's not true, because there are ways that you can get around that, and
yeah,
I think that you do that for the second time, which is what happened with Richard Nixon. You do that for the second time, and you have proven to the American people that old adage, "No one is above the law," is a
right.
crock of, can I say the word?
You can if you want.
Shit.
Yeah.
That is that is exactly what you're saying to the American
Uh-huh.
people. When we talk about the law, when we talk about the Constitution, we don't really
Yeah.
mean it. That's
No.
just for the little people. So, yeah, and as far as him pardoning himself, there's a lot of debate about that, including the constitutional scholars that I have talked to a person, has said absolutely not. Everything, not just the Constitution, and they can share with you the various portions of the Constitution that indicate that that's absolutely untrue. But they also say that the Federalist Papers, the writings prior to the full adoption of the Constitution, that those documents also fall on the side of the president is not allowed to pardon himself, because there has to be some accountability for the person who holds the highest office in the land. They
You
didn't
would
want a king. They were very intent on that.
No, you would think so, and it shows that there are some rules we need to change. Former President Obama gave an interview recently with, I think, Christiane Amanpour, where he talked about the creakiness of the democratic system and things that we have uncovered of as of late that
Right.
we obviously need to fix, laws that we need to pass, systems that we need to change that aren't
Yes.
working for us.
Yeah. Christiane Amanpour is awesome.
Hmm.
And and I agree with President Obama that there are these things, including things like the ethics on the Supreme Court. There's that. There are a number of things, I think, that are creaky. Overall, it is a brilliant document that has really withheld the test of time. But who was it recently? Oh, it was Donald Trump. How could I forget? Who wants to essentially abolish the Constitution. And he said that. And then Ron DeSantis now thinks that he's going to unilaterally abolish birthright citizenship, which
Yeah,
is in
I
the
heard that.
Constitution. There's just so many stupid things. And I am coming away with the new Republican Party, and not the old Republican Party, certainly not
Yeah.
the party that, John Rothman was a member of at one point in time, certainly not the party of Reagan, but the Republican Party, the power structure within the Republican Party today, including Kevin McCarthy, who didn't used to be this way, but has sold his soul to the devil and bought onto the big MAGA crowd. These MAGA people, they hate the Constitution. They hate the concepts of equality. They hate the concept of intellectualism, of knowing things, of understanding real history. They hate this. They hate the people being in charge. They hate it. And that's what I've come away with. I think that the modern day Republican Party is the greatest danger our democracy faces today.
I love you so much and I want to keep you. But we've already been on the air for almost a half hour. Can I keep you longer?
No, because
Oh,
I have to go, but
come on.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but I just cannot do it. But we'll do it again because
My
you and I
friend,
have
I
some.
adore you and I miss you and I miss this discussion that we had every day and
I
I'm so
know.
grateful to be able to do it
Didn't
here.
we have the greatest talks off the air?
Oh, we
I mean,
did.
we
Yeah.
just did our own little talk show off the air, and if people had listened in, it was just so great. And I'm so sorry that we're not able to do that anymore.
Yeah, me too.
Mm.
But we move on. We can do it here, and I'm grateful for you, to you for being here. And I know everyone in the chat is really enjoying seeing you again as well.
Well, I love everybody, and I was going to say except MAGA Republicans, but that's not true because I love them too. I just hate that their minds have been so twisted in the
Yeah.
direction of hate. And I'm hoping, and I believe this, that with time, that's going to unwind and that people are going to get back to the concepts that we embrace that really made us a great nation. We should be evolving over the time of the adoption of the Constitution. We eradicated slavery. Can we eradicate racism? We give women now have rights that women didn't used to have because we were considered chattel. Can we move beyond that and have respect for women and women's rights to control their own bodies? We should be evolving, and we have, but we do take two steps forward and one step back all the time. I think the two steps forward are coming, and I think it's going to happen within the next few years. I wish it
Pat
would happen
Thurston,
today.
perfect way to end it. I love you so much, and
Love
I'll
you,
come
Kimmy,
back, okay?
and I
Come back
miss
to
you
me.
so much.
I miss you too, my friend.
Bye.
Bye, Pat Thurston. Pat Thurston on the broadcast. I took me away instead of her. What a treat to have Pat Thurston on the broadcast today. I love her so much, and I will make it a point to try to hassle her until she comes back on with me. I'm so grateful. She's so awesome, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Yep, Pat, you rock, says Troy. Great to see you, Pat. A lot of love for Pat in the chat. I know you guys miss her. I miss her too, and I do also appreciate her positivity. I love how she ended it on an up note. I was reading something last night. You know how sometimes we have, I mean, everybody has that negative self talk. I was watching something, it was one of those really quick little videos. I think it was on Facebook. I was scrolling through, and there was a psychologist on there who was saying every time you hear something negative, immediately say something positive. That is how you get your neurotransmitters to change, so that if you always hear the negative thing, whatever it is, you're not smart enough. If you always hear that and you don't contradict it when you hear that voice inside say that, then that will just kind of take root. But if every time you think that, you change that with, you are smart, you are incredible. Here's all the reasons why you're smart. Here's all the reasons why you're a great thinker. Whatever your thing that that negative voice tells you that you may think about yourself, or you may hear a voice inside your head, your mother's voice, perhaps, father's voice, whatever, telling you, you replace that voice with the positive, and you do it every time and you do it repeatedly. You can actually change the way you think about yourself. I loved it. So I love that Pat ended on a positive note. I enjoy her so much. Yep. Bye bye, Pat. Miss Pat. Nice to see her. I think so too. It was one of the highlights, definitely, of working at KGO, was our time together in the afternoons, and I looked forward to it every day. Um, let's talk a little bit about a story. Well, maybe I should do a little bit of news first. Yeah, let's do a little bit of news, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about this guy that got, I don't know if you say really lucky, or if it's a lifestyle you would choose, but boy, has he traveled a lot, and we'll take a look at that. But first, let us do a little bit of news. And you know I'm by myself, so it means I have to figure out how to play my news theme by myself. I can do it.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
As Pat Thurston was mentioning, the State Department says the full fallout over the mercenary rebellion in Russia really remains to be seen. Spokesman Matthew Miller told reporters today it's a significant step to see Russian President Vladimir Putin's leadership directly challenged. Miller made the comment following the Wagner Group's short-lived rebellion over the weekend. Course, a lot of delays, airline delays, and people are still really experiencing the ripple effect after intense storms hit regions of the country. According to FlightAware, more than 1,400 flights into or out of the U.S. have been canceled today alone. We've had heavy thunderstorms in part of the Southeast, the Ohio Valley last night, knocking out power to 700,000 homes and businesses. The White House is taking steps to boost internet connectivity across the country. President Biden today announcing more than $40 billion to expand high speed internet access. Biden says his administration is aiming to connect every person in the U.S. to reliable high speed internet by the year 2030. Parents' Rights Group in New Jersey is accusing the state attorney general, Matt Platkin, of waging war on them. Platkin is a Democrat. He announced lawsuits against local school districts that require teachers to tell parents if their child wants to be known by a different name or pronoun, or wants other accommodations. Some parents are outraged, claiming Platkin is denying their right to know what is going on with their kids. They say he is waging war against them. Patti LaBelle is catching some heat after forgetting some lyrics during a Tina Turner tribute at the BET Awards. As she was singing, the teleprompter was blocked by an audience member, and it caused LaBelle to lose her place in Turner's song, The Best. Some viewers were upset, called the performance disrespectful and unprofessional. Can she help it if someone gets in the way of the prompter? Maybe she should have memorized it. I don't know. An ultra marathoner runner shattered the women's Western States 100-mile race record rather by over an hour. Courtney DeWalter took nearly 80 minutes off Elle Greenwood's 2012 record. DeWalter says she pushed herself to run through the pain, and she finished the California race in about 15 and a half hours for 100 miles. Amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing. I can't even imagine. I'm always in awe of people that can do things like that. Okay, let's go to the news because there's a story that I wanted to bring to you. And this is a story out of New Jersey where this man bought a lifetime pass on United Airlines 3 decades ago. Okay, so he buys it for $290,000. 30 years ago. That's quite a lot. His name is Tom Stuker. He's from New Jersey. He buys this $290,000 pass in 1990. He calls it now the best investment of his life. So I guess United says this guy's living like a sultan. He flies multiple miles. He's flown more than the Apollo 11 spacecraft. In the 33 years since he's had this special pass to fly whenever he wants, he has flown more than 23 million miles. He has visited more than 100 countries. His mileage in 2019 covered more than 6 trips to the moon. That's how far he flew. That's the distance wise. He took 373 flights in 2019. Had he paid cash for those in 2019, it would have cost him 2.4 million. But no, because in 1990, he paid 290,000 for a lifetime pass. He has flown so much that the miles he has accrued along the way have now passed the 5 million mile mark. And that apparently unlocks the floodgates of all kinds of perks and freebies and things. He was the first United Airlines customer to pass the 5 million mile mark. And they say he's lived like a sultan on United Miles ever since. He gets lavish hotel suites all over the world, weeks-long crystal cruises, gourmet meals from Perth to Paris. He's used the miles to redo his brother's house. He once cashed $50,000 worth of Walmart gift cards in a single day. He won a charity auction to appear in a Seinfeld episode by bidding 451,000 air miles. He says he's also seen his fair share of tragedy aboard planes. He's seen people have heart attacks and die aboard planes. But he's going to continue flying. He and his wife have been on more than 120 honeymoons. I mean, that's cool and everything, but I don't know if I would really like his lifestyle. He's flown hundreds of days in a year. And so, I mean, I would imagine that you're in the air more than you're on the ground or as much. And I just feel like everybody needs some downtime, right? The pandemic slowed him down a little bit, Mr. Stucker. But he's back now and he's doing it. He has flown between 200 and 250 days a year. That was before the pandemic. So most of the year he's been on an airplane. And I just like, it's too much go, 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 go. Would you guys have wanted that? Would you want to be that kind of jet setter who's going everywhere? I mean, even if it's free, because I think they should have given me the pass because they would have really made their money off me. I probably wouldn't have gone anywhere. Chris says, imagine that guy's life. Yeah. First class or coach. At one point it was business. I think he gets whatever's available. So he probably gets first class quite a bit. And now that he's past the 5 million mile mark, probably quite a lot. I would imagine. Um, does he have to does he have money for hotels? Okay, so again, once you pass the 5 million mile mark, I guess you get a lot of free fancy suites and everything, a lot of freebies. But I will say that if you had in 1990 almost $300,000 to buy a lifetime airline ticket, you're probably not hurting for money, right? Yeah. Um, let's see what you have to say. Hawaii, Paris, Florence, Canada, Ireland, everywhere. He's got money. Yeah. Wes says would like to have the option, but would not use it as much as he would. Yeah, I wouldn't either. But I guess, I mean, it was the right purchase for him and he has loved it. But I can't imagine flying for 250 days out of the year. It just seems crazy. He does live like a sultan, though. I can say that. Did anybody go to the pride festivals over the weekend? The parades and the all the things that were going on? It's a huge, huge pride parade and festival in San Francisco. In New York, you couldn't get anywhere. The streets were packed with people celebrating, thousands in the streets. Yeah, there was the trans march as well in San Francisco. Looks like, yeah, it's a big outpouring, I think, in a year where there's an attack on the freedom to be yourself. 500 anti-LGBTQ bills are advancing in different state legislatures around the country. A lot of them targeting trans people in places where trans people haven't even been an issue. You know, we're going to pass a law about high school sports, even though there's no trans people trying to compete in high school sports right now. So the word from a lot of people that went to these events this year is that felt more important to show up. It felt more important to take a stand. Uh, so pictures from this year's Pride Parade and Trans Parade in San Francisco is really cool. The I think it's really cool because it's a joyous celebration. You know, people were cheering. Nancy Pelosi was there riding along with Adam Schiff. uh, they talked about the political climate of the country. There were some protests. Um, I was glad to see it, and I feel like from coast to coast, America really turned out to show who we truly are. Did you have a chance to go? Did you take any stands this weekend? Did you do anything that you were proud of? Mindy says she watched it on television, colorful, loving, and fun. Yeah. I was glad to see it again. I really was, and I felt very overjoyed to see how people came out for that. There is a story, back to airlines for just a moment, about a woman who arrived at the airport with all of her clothes stuffed into her bra. Why? I don't know. I don't know. She wore all of her clothes at once because she didn't want to pay extra for having an overweight bag. Can you just pack more lightly then in a little carry-on? Uh, she says we can absolutely pack smaller than you think. I'm going to go out there and say it will make your holiday better. This is a 33-year-old woman from the UK. She has this website called Cheap Holiday Expert. Her name is Chelsea Dickinson, and she put on a bra over her shirt, and then she packed all of her clothes in the cups of the bra to show how little you really need and how you could just carry it on you. There was another woman recently though who tried to do that, who rolled up to the check-in counter and her bag was overweight. So she and a friend tried to put on all their clothes and they were turned away. So I don't know. I mean, as airlines charge you fee after fee, you know, more and more we're having to pay for every little thing. People are coming up with these inventive ways to get around it. I was reading a story where one woman decided she was going to wear a fishing vest and pack all of her items that she needed for her trip, clothes, toiletries, everything, in this fishing vest. And that was her way to pack. So she just carried everything on her back. Is that where we're going? Oh, if that's the way we're going, I don't know if I want to travel at all. Speaking of tourism, there is there's a religious group that could, I guess, bring more tourists to the Bay Area. It's the Jehovah's Witnesses. They could bring a convention, tourism industries, some business here. They, I guess, Dreamforce. Well, Dreamforce was a kind of a boon for the convention industry, but the Moscone Center has been struggling since the pandemic. Well, now we've got this Jehovah's Witnesses first in-person convention since the start of the pandemic, and more than 22,000 visitors across 16 events through September are supposed to come. They usually held their conventions at the Cow Palace, but now they're bringing their group, their thousands of visitors, to the Assembly Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses in Fremont. About 6 years ago, they say, pardon me, we found out the Cow Palace was no longer meeting our needs. This is Edgar Arias, spokesperson for the Jehovah's Witnesses, telling SF Gate. Oracle Park and Chase Center charged a premium rate, so we started using the Fremont Assembly Hall to hold our conventions. It's pretty big. I mean, it looks like it would work, but it will bring a lot of business to the Silicon Valley, to South Bay. I guess any business is good business. We'll take whatever we can get, even if it's the Jehovah's Witnesses. Kind of culty, but okay. Here's what it looks like. It's big in Fremont. I had no idea they had a hall that big for Jehovah's Witnesses there. And so the forecast for tourism is that the economy won't come back fully until at least 2025. And that is causing some hotels in San Francisco to fold. We saw one hotel owner just hand the keys back over to the owner, or the person providing the loan, and say, "I'm out," right? But the Jehovah's Witnesses conventions saying their theme this year, exercise patience. They will bring the tourism back. That maybe we can't see them visiting the Embarcadero or the Haight, but they'll probably go to San Francisco and come see the sights, right? He says, I know the office vacancy, the spokesperson for the Jehovah's Witnesses, is down right now in downtown area, San Francisco. Many people living and working at restaurants, setting up conventions. I can't imagine how difficult it is right now. When you get that taken away because of circumstances that are out of control, it's really tough. So maybe it's the Jehovah's Witnesses conference that really, I don't know, helps out San Francisco or the Bay Area. Okay, they're all coming. Here they come. Jehovah's Witnesses. Mm. Um, looking at summer vacations, talking about travel and what you're going to do. There are places in Yosemite where it's not campers, it's like long-term campers kind of situation. Camp 4 is where most of these folks are hanging out. It's an historic Yosemite campground, and the headline in SF Gate says it's where dirt bags stay illegally for months. I don't want to call people dirt bags. It's a 57 site camp right below a towering granite cliff in the Yosemite Valley. And I guess it's a hub for the climbing community. And some people love it so much, these climbers, that they have made it home. Some residents have stayed for months and months, 3 to 4 months, maybe 6. Over the last 3 years, people are staying. The official rules of Camp 4 say you've got to book a site, pay $10 a person through recreation.gov. That's the app. But people don't do that. They call it dirt bagging, where they live as frugally as they can and they come and they set up camp for free and they don't pay the fee and they climb and they live and they just stay there. One so-called dirtbag climber, he called himself Chongo Chuck. He lived in this park for more than a decade before rangers caught him and kicked him out. That was in 2005. But these climbers are just staying here. And when they were asked, how long do you plan to live in Yosemite in a tent? One of them said, it depends on the weather and how much money I've got. If it's good weather and I can stay the whole season, I would stay here for 2 or 3 months. I've been here for a month, plan on staying another month unless it floods again. So these people are called dirt bags. I feel bad calling them dirt bags, but they break Yosemite's rules on how long someone can camp in the park, which is usually 30 nights per calendar year total. Any more than that, you got to go. No more than 14 nights between May 1st and September 15th, and only 7 nights permitted in Yosemite Valley. They don't pay. They've got their reasons. It's hard to do it right. Lacks services. Some people feel it's not worth it. Recreation.gov, which is the app that you use to book such trips, is getting sued for allegedly cashing in on the national park system. Some people say I don't pay to camp here because I think it's just ridiculous. And that a decent amount of climbers evade the fees. It's pretty easy to do if you know how to do it. The reporter from SF Gate that went up and did the story on this says that the rules don't seem to be a priority. That it looks like the enforcement is very lax in this area. They call it a chaotic kind of campsite. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I feel it's horrible when you have a park like this that relies on that type of fund, the money from tourism, and you have people using the facilities and doing all these things, and they're not paying for it at all. I have a problem with that. Oh, some excitement in the chat. Greg Dayton, I have to say you've been a little bit negative today. I noticed that earlier in the chat. I welcome you being here, but you had some negative things to say. We were talking about positive. Every time you think something negative, to replace it with something positive. It's my hope that you could put that into practice a bit. Being called dirtbags is an honor, says Deidre. Okay, maybe. I feel bad saying it. Yeah, you don't have to attend that. And if you have a problem with it, then just don't do it. Again, it's the keep your eyes on your own paper thing. Why are you so worried about what everyone else is doing? Calvin says they have to leave. You can't hog the space when everyone else wants to go. Evict them. I agree. And I think we all have to work together to take care of our beautiful parks, to pay up, right? To keep them running and clean and nice. Deidre says Camp 4 is strictly used by climbers. Yeah. More from Greg. Everybody around the world has problems. Just saying it gets old after a while. Go ahead and attack me. Oh, I don't want to attack you. I just want you to be a little bit more positive. It's take it as a challenge today. Perhaps it might be a nice challenge. Who knows? Just a thought. Let's talk about Louisiana and the Supreme Court ruling. We might get some more Supreme Court decisions tomorrow about student loans, about affirmative action. But we got a ruling that Louisiana will have to redraw its state congressional map. The Supreme Court dismissed an appeal to leave the map in place. The state sued last year over a new map that was passed by the Republican legislature that created just one district with a Black majority. Egregious? Yes. The high court's decisions apparently coming just weeks after it upheld a lower court ruling that determined a Republican-drawn map in Alabama discriminated against Black voters. You can't I mean, I guess if you pack the courts, you can do this, but it's just so outrageous to me that if you don't like the election results, you redraw the maps so that it's more beneficial to your party. It was so egregious that even the Supreme Court's like, "Yeah, that's too much for us too." Come on. Finally, I mean, I somebody standing up and saying no. Yeah. Um, Looking in the chat. It doesn't look like we're having a very positive conversation, my friends. I do want to take a moment though to thank Wes, who in a very way, a positive way, passed on a super sticker. Wes for $5. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. I'm going to put this in the chat, and hopefully you guys want to come on and chit chat. There is the link. So if there's anything that we've talked about that you're interested in discussing, you can pop on the show. There it is right there. John writes, discrimination against blacks in Alabama? Seriously? Oh, come on. I mean, it's bad when even the Supreme Court is like, okay, so you can't do this. This is not okay. Yeah. I'm glad they did that. And I feel like I'm going to wait to see how those lines are redrawn and what happens now. But it's a big message that happened in Louisiana to people of color, that the Republicans are hoping that you don't vote. And I think it's a huge signal that you should go and you should vote in every district. Let's talk a little bit about savings. I am concerned about this because we've seen over the last few years how the lack of affordable housing, how many people have been laid off, how close people are to the edge has pushed a lot of people into homelessness. And now I saw this story today, and I mentioned a little bit earlier um, about how much people have in their savings accounts. I don't know how much you have saved up, depending, compared to how much you make, but this is the way this is breaking down. Less than half of Americans, half of us, say they have 3 months worth of savings. And isn't it we're supposed to have 3 to 6 months of savings in case something happens so we can keep paying our mortgage or our rent or whatever? At least 3 months, if not 6 months, so that you can sleep at night, right? According to a recent bank rate survey, 57% of US adults are uncomfortable with the emergency savings that they currently have. 22% of US adults have no emergency savings at all. Nothing. No backup plan. You lose your job, you're out. 36% have more credit card debt than emergency savings, and that is a record high since 2011. So let's just go over that again. Most of us don't uh, don't have 3 months worth of savings in case of emergency. Then 22% don't have any savings at all, and 36% owe more in credit cards than they have in savings. We're in bad shape. That's bad. That's a lot of people, a a so-called paycheck away from catastrophe. Here we are trying to get people out of homelessness, make more affordable housing options for people. And what we have is, if you look at this, most of society who's kind of floundering on the edge. I feel like it's hard to save because expenses always come up and things are always happening and cars are always breaking, refrigerators are always breaking, washing machines are always breaking. There's always something to do, even if it's not frivolous money being wasted. But what is it they say? You have to pay yourself first. You got to put that money away first. I knew a young woman, I worked with her, and she was always struggling. Like the last few days before payday, she was always having to borrow money from people, and it was bad. And I and then we would get paid, and there would be, she would be spending money on big lunches and on all these expensive things, or she would come in with a new pair of shoes, and you're thinking, in a week and a half, you're going to be struggling again. You're not going to have gas money to get to work. You're not going to have all these things that you borrow money from people for. But when you have the money, you spend it, and then you're not looking toward the future. And I think maybe is it because people don't have the money, or is it because of the way we're looking at money? Is it because we're not looking in the long term? When we have money, we look at the short term. What do I want now? What do I need now? What can I spend this on now? Well, I mean, I think what you need to do is take that money and put it away for, the must-haves, for not the wants, but the needs. The needs are important. I mean, what do you need? You need a roof over your head, you need food to eat. I was reading a story about Warren Buffett and the ways in which he says we should teach children good financial habits. And one of them was sitting down and really going into wants versus needs, to make a list of all the things you want and then to make a list of all the things you need. Now, just something you need is that new shoes for school? Probably. Something you want is that, I don't know, a new hat for school. Like, what do you need versus what do you want? And then he talked about the old thing you may have heard of with the jars. You put cash in the jar. This is your spending jar. This is your saving jar. So you can see it right in front of you. I haven't done that, but maybe I should. Maybe I'm being remiss. There are just some people in this world that are horrible with money. I think everybody has someone in their family. Most people have someone in their family where if they've inherited money, or if they're going to inherit money, that money is going to be gone like that. Whereas other people will put it away, will save it, will do something really big and important with it. Um, Other people will just, go on vacations, or tithe it to the church, or do, people that don't have a lot tend to frivolously give things away. So I don't know. Let's see what you have to say. Mike says, oh, we're talking about politics here. We're not talking about money. All right. Oh, what percentage of those people, writes Lax Paint, have a huge medical debt that other people in other countries don't have to pay? That's true. We do have more costs here. Calvin says, I can't sleep. Is it because you're rolling around thinking about finance? Thinking about how you don't have enough in savings and stressing out over it? That's why my husband doesn't sleep sometimes. Yeah. Um, I'm trying to look at things pertinent to the conversation. I'm glad. Maybe you guys do have enough money. Maybe you're all good savers. Wes says, usually have one paycheck in savings. Life is expensive. Life is expensive, and there always seems to be something, doesn't there? My mom had, when she was working, she had a savings account and had money automatically taken out of her paycheck that went to this account that she pretended didn't exist. So she just never touched it. And I mean, it would have to be a huge emergency for her to dip into this account. It worked for her. She managed to save quite a bit. Anonymous writes, had plenty of savings until COVID. Government ruined the economy. I'm sorry, Anonymous. That sucks. Hopefully you're kind of recouping now and putting things back together. At least. Prices, writes Kathleen, are going up faster than pay rates and salary. It's true. Just go to the grocery store. It's, you buy 4 things, you walk out, you spend at least $50. Anonymous has a sibling that it's that way, terrible with money, but keeps asking everyone for help when she's out of money. If you question their habits, they get all offended and gaslight. It's true. You have the people that, I mean, they must know they're bad with money. They must realize that everyone else seems to be more responsible But then when the money comes their way, instead of giving it to someone else to watch over, right? Okay, don't let me spend, all my money on frivolous things. I hope they would ask. Don't let me blow all this money. Dole it out to me. Only let me spend a certain amount per year. They don't do that. They still for some reason think that they can handle it, that they can manage it, and then all the money is gone. Yeah, it's frustrating. Calvin says credit unions are better than for-profit banks. Same service. I agree with that. Redwood Credit Union. Knit one, pearl one. I'm single, so I can cut back when I have to, except on the cats. It's going to be hard when you have kids. It's got to be hard when you have kids. It is hard when you have kids because they want stuff and then they need stuff. And then talking to them about, the wants versus needs. This summer, basketball camp. I consider it a need. I want my kids to get physical activity. Was it? It's kind of a want. I didn't get to go to fancy camps when I was a kid. We just had to figure it out. We were bored. We had to occupy ourselves, right? Now everybody's going to fancy camp. My daughter went to Washington, D.C. And the reason I sent her on that expensive trip was because when I was in eighth grade, I didn't get to go on the one that, that was planned for my class. And I always regretted it. And even now, I haven't seen those things, those historic parts of our country that she went to go see. And so I thought that was more of a need as well. But yeah, I mean, needs versus wants. Chris writes, I own nothing. It feels good. It sure does. And when you talk about the people, was it 36% of people have more credit card debt than emergency savings? That's scary. That's really scary. That's the keep you up at night kind of thing. Yeah. Uh, Knit One Pro One says your kids appreciate it. I didn't go to camp or trips either. You want your kids to have more than you had, but you also don't want to be frivolous and teach them that spending willy-nilly is a good thing. And that's one of the things in this Warren Buffett article. He said you're modeling for them. They're watching what you buy, they're watching how you spend. So don't go spending frivolously, don't throw money around, don't, you know, uh, buy a lot of the wants and not a lot of the needs. So hopefully I'm doing a good job in teaching them that. Scott says, I know people who padded the expense account just to make ends meet. Executives got $350 a month for clothing allowance. CEO's wife cruised from Napa to San Francisco in a limo paid for by the corporation. Well, that's not good. I would call that theft. Yeah, that doesn't sound like the right way to handle it. But money is a big deal, and again, back to Kathleen's comment of prices going up faster than pay. It's true. I don't know how they're expecting people to keep up with and pay for things. I don't know how people afford homes in the Bay Area or how long the real estate market can tolerate the increase of housing prices. Anyway, something to consider as we talk about things on this Monday. I'm always thinking about how concerned I am about how I'm teaching my kids about money and what that means. Let's talk about George Santos. Finally, Republicans are coming out and saying, listen, we're not going to support him. Any other Republican candidate except him, that's who we'll support. Of course, George Santos, known for being the liar. I was going to say lying liars who lie. Being the liar, talking about telling stories about his family history, telling tall tales about his college life, his background, all kinds of things that turned out not to be true at all. And then showing his face in Congress like none of that really mattered at all. Like it's not a big deal to lie. Like you shouldn't hide your face in shame. Lied about pretty much everything. I think his last name has now become synonymous with Pinocchio for lying. And so now comes a story from House Speaker Kevin McCarthy that he will not be supporting Congressman Santos for reelection. McCarthy goes on Fox and Friends and says Santos actually shouldn't run again. Uh, he said he plans to keep Santos's seat with another Republican candidate. I think Santos is planning to run again. I don't know. He's in some legal trouble though for all these dishonest things that have happened with him. And so maybe his legal trouble is preventing him from really getting a lot more support. You see people kind of, the rats are scurrying away from him and he's left standing there alone. Oh, George Santos. Yeah. It's nice to see that there is at least the Republican Party has some standards, right? Still supporting Trump despite the lies, but Santos, no, that's just a step too far. No can do on that. Oh, I'm not sad about it. I don't feel bad about the lack of support. So I think that's just the way it goes. I am very happy for Brittany Griner. I don't know if you heard the story. Oh, and I'm frozen in time again. Great. Ah, I hate when that happens. But at least I went quite a while before it happened today. Brittany Griner has been named a starter for the WNBA's upcoming All-Star game. She is the ninth All-Star. Well, this is the ninth All-Star nod of her career, I should say. Last year, she got the honorary All-Star because, of course, she was locked up in Russia. It's nice to see good things happening for her. A woman who thought maybe that she would be in a Russian prison through all of her playing years. You know, that by the time she got out, she wouldn't be in any position. She wouldn't be young enough to play. She wouldn't be in shape enough to play. And now she's all-starring it. I'm glad to see that happening for her. The Coast Guard will indeed investigate what happened to that Titan submersible. They were not, it wasn't a done deal. There's so many agencies involved that they weren't sure if they were going to do an investigation or not, or if they were just going to be involved in the recovery and not in the investigation. But now it looks like the US Coast Guard is saying, yeah, we are going to do an investigation of this submersible, the Titan, which imploded near the Titanic wreckage and killed the 5 people aboard. What they're saying is, it was well, it was announced yesterday in Boston that they would do the investigation. They said right now they're currently in the evidence collecting phase of all this, and then they're going to move on and they will end up doing an investigation. I don't know if their investigation then kind of pairs with everyone else's, or if they, because there are multiple agencies involved, if they work together, or if everyone does their own investigation and then they kind of put it together. Do you think it's a waste of money to do an investigation? I mean, they kind of know what happened. Unsafe vehicle, right? Made out of the wrong stuff, imploded. Perhaps, I guess it can tell the story, and perhaps it can keep someone else from doing something like this if we know exactly what went wrong, how, why, and when. A lot of questions to answer. I don't know. Part of me feels like it's a waste of money, that we've already spent enough money on the search, on the recovery effort. Mm, is an investigation financially necessary? I don't know. Um, Talking about money, Susan writes, "My parents were horrible with their money. So they saved and saved and saved. They made you save? Hmm, okay. Well, I'm glad you're a saver. That's good stuff." Regarding the submersible, Al says that's a waste of money. I didn't ask or was asked for my tax dollars to go toward a rescue effort when they needed it imploded when it imploded days prior. They knew that it hadn't imploded. Yeah, because the Navy heard it implode. I still don't know why they didn't tell us that. They told us about the banging sounds every half an hour, but they didn't tell us about the initial implosion sound. Was it to create this hope this kind of national story of everyone waiting on pins and needles to find out if there was a story of survival or a tragedy. Yeah. So I guess it's I'm annoyed by that. But yeah, you're right, Anonymous. And I don't know if we need to spend the money to investigate all this. What is it going to tell us? What do we need to know about what happened here? Can we not figure out what happened here? I mean, it's on videotape. The guy made the submersible out of substandard materials. It didn't have safety checks. Whatever caused it to implode, they should have seen it coming. So I don't know that we need to spend millions on an investigation, but whatever money they spent on search and rescue mission, then followed by the recovery effort, and even I would argue the investigation should all be covered by the company's insurance. I think the Coast Guard ought to send the Ocean Gate business a bill, a big fat bill. Greg says it's a waste of 5 lives. Don't ever go down there. Their hearts will go on. The investigation maybe shows that dead rich people have more value. Hmm. Mindy says the investigation should be done so there will be more safety laws in order before companies can take people down in the water and risk lives in an unsafe submersible. But I would argue that what US laws would be applicable in international waters? I mean, can't they just do whatever they want to do? They didn't have to follow US law. I guess perhaps OceanGate should have because they're a company based in Everett, Washington, right, in the United States. So US laws should have covered what they did. I don't know. I can see your point, Mindy. I do understand it, but I just think it's too expensive when we already kind of know what happened. Natalie says, I think without having eyes on the wreckage, that they had to keep looking with remote submersibles for as long as they could potentially have an air supply. Yeah, true. That's true. And I had no problem with that. I was hoping they would be found alive. Hmm. I agree. But now that we know what happened, that it imploded, why spend more money on the investigation? Um, Stanley agrees. He says that they knew what was what. They kept it under wraps all week. I mean, and why would they want to do that? Is it to maintain that kind of riveted world attention on this search and rescue mission? Why wouldn't they have released that information? I wonder. Free the world, let the risk takers do what they do, says Grady. As long as we don't have to pay for it, but we are having to pay for it. I mean, I would like to see the numbers, Greg, about how much the US Coast Guard has spent on the search and rescue, on the recovery of all the pieces of the submersible. Then they'll bring it back up and they'll piece it together and they'll see how exactly it imploded, and maybe it's a scientific endeavor. I don't know. Yeah, just keep the taxpayers' hard-earned money out of the rescue, make them pay, and they should. I noticed that Ocean's Gate shut down. They closed their business really quickly right after the submersible was found, and that was it. They're going to be sued. 6 ways from Sunday, they're going to be sued. So, thank you for clicking the like button. That is much appreciated here on the Nikki Maduro Show. And it's a free thing you can do just to clicky that like button. And we always appreciate it. Nikki is coming back tomorrow. So we will be able to continue our conversation in that way. And I'm always so happy to have her back in the captain's chair. So that's pretty great. And of course, we have I can't believe it's almost the end of June already. And the 4th of July is coming up. There is a story from AAA, of course, the yearly story, that says a record number of people are expected to travel over this July 4th holiday. More than 50 million Americans, according to AAA, will travel 50 miles or more from home. So that's more people than traveled on the 4th of July before the pandemic. More people will be going by car now that gas is a little bit lower. Air travel up at least 11% compared to last year, with more than 4 million Americans taking to the skies. So people are traveling for the 4th of July. What are you doing for the 4th of July? Do you intend to go somewhere? Is that what you're doing? Yeah. LAX Paint talking about the submersible. People are going to pay to go down in a submersible to see the wreckage of the original submersible that went down to see the wreckage of the Titanic. Yeah, that's I mean, if it wasn't so sad, it would be funny. It is funny. Lady Beatrice, they're screwed after this, but it doesn't save them from any legal action the families might want to take. I mean, I don't care how many times you put your pen to paper saying you accepted the risk. If they can show that there was a flaunting of safety rules, I think that a lawsuit is coming. It's a coming. Even if you signed the release, it's coming. Cue the gas prices, says OCB. Yeah, now that they know everyone's going to want to use it, the gas prices will go up. I'm staying home for the 4th of July. Not going anywhere. Kind of a boring summer. I didn't really plan very much. We're kind of sticking close to home this summer. So, um, we one of the things we would not have seen was that horrible situation at the San Antonio International Airport where the worker was ingested into a jet engine. Ooh. Delta flight 1111 from Los Angeles was taxiing to the gate Friday night when the worker was, quote, ingested. I heard Mark talk about that earlier. Yuck. I can't even imagine. And what do you tell people on the plane? I'm sorry that we are going to have to disembark. Don't look this way. The plane's a little messy. Ooh, it's gross. That's gross. And I mean, that's something you should investigate. Safety protocols clearly not followed. Clearly not followed. A lot of delays at the airport today, by the way. Big storms on the East Coast. More than 1,400 flights canceled. 4,800 flights delayed today. So if you're picking up someone from the airport, just think about that. Remember that shooting? I'm sorry if I'm flitting back and forth from topic to topic, but remember that shooting at the nightclub, LGBTQ nightclub in Colorado? 5 people were shot, killed, 19 others were injured. Well, the shooters pled guilty, and I think it's interesting because so many times, someone has done something, you have it even on tape, and it's a not guilty plea for whatever reason. This is a guilty plea. The 23-year-old shooter agreeing to serve 5 consecutive life sentences without parole in a deal he made with prosecutors. The death penalty was not an option for prosecutors because Colorado abolished it in 2020. Still, even with the death penalty not in play, this 23-year-old shooter makes a plea deal, says, I'm guilty, and he will serve 5 consecutive life sentences without parole. I guess 1 life sentence for each of the people that he killed there. So glad to see that. So often I see cases where I just don't feel like justice has really been served. If you are still worried about COVID, and a lot of people aren't, I've been to events and my daughter was in Washington, D.C. My sister is on the East Coast right now. Nobody wearing masks, no one wearing masks at the airport, in restaurants, in crowded museums. People are like, COVID, what's that? Well, there's a new variant of COVID detected in several Western states now. It's cases of something called the EU11 strain, confirmed in North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah, Wyoming, Colorado, Montana. It's unclear if it has any different symptoms, this new strain, EU11. COVID is not over. And I feel like, we've just flicked off the masks and run free into society, when in some cases, we might still need to be careful. Like, my daughter was in a play recently, And I think I was maybe one of only 2 or 3 people. It was me and a couple of old ladies that were masked, but we're in a together, right? A group of what, 150 people in an audience, everyone packed into a little room and not much airflow. It's the perfect moment to pull out your mask just to be safe and make sure. But people are tired of it. Nobody wants to do that anymore. So I worry that, when you see a new strain, it could go like wildfire. Is anybody here still wearing a mask? I don't know, just me. Yeah. Mindy laughs at me. I hear you, Mindy. I see you. Um, I maybe I am an old lady. Maybe that's why, Calvin. You're funny. Um, when I mean old ladies, I mean like little gray-haired old ladies, like, people that should be concerned about their health because of course if you're older, you're more susceptible to having the worst types of symptoms. I get why people that are older would throw the mask on. Absolutely. What's a mask? Says Sam. Yeah, it's true. What's a mask? Nobody knows anymore. Heather writes, I'm still in solidarity with you. I wear a mask everywhere. Heather, I've become a little more lax. I have gone into grocery stores with no mask. Indeed. Um, I'm at a movie theater, like, I feel like that's an enclosed area. I don't know the people in the movie theater. I'm still masked up. My husband looks at me like I'm a nut. And clearly, if he's not masked and I am, then I'm at risk. So what's the point of wearing the mask, right? But there are places where I still feel like I'm more comfortable with a mask. So I just wear it. I don't care what anybody thinks. What does it matter if I wear it? Wes says when my husband goes to the hospital, I wear a mask. That's where the sick people are. Also, you know where else I wear a mask? CVS pharmacy. I had to go recently pick up medication for my son who was sick. And I'm thinking to myself, this is where all the people that are sick come to pick up their medicine. Why am I not going to wear a mask in this place? Knit one, pearl one. I am Kim even when out shopping. Do you just not feel comfortable yet? Do you think it's still widespread? What's it going to take for you to feel safe? When do we drop the mask? I mean, I think most people have, right? SF Tesla, don't get me started. This may or may not be related, but San Jose is turning up many more than the usual 10 to 55 cases this morning. Oh, they died. Oh, gosh. Calvin uses a mask. Just shoplifters wearing masks. It isn't, though, Chris. It isn't. Lori says I mask when close to people because of my still undiagnosed health issues. I have workmen in my apartment now, and I mask when I'm talking to them. That's smart because you don't know if they don't take precautions or where they've been or what they're doing, right? And here they are in your space. Natalie says, I mask up in a doctor's office, but we are fully vaxxed in my house as we are here. One kid got COVID in 2022. Second kid got it 2023. But my husband and I haven't caught it at all. Knock on wood. I'll knock for you, Natalie. We haven't had it either, although I suspect we had it early on. We'd gone to Disneyland right before the pandemic really began, and we came home super sick. And I remember kind of thinking, this is a weird sickness where I'm having trouble breathing. And I was supposed to go to Europe. I did go to Europe, but I didn't realize anything was wrong with me. And I got better quickly, but I remember still having a cough. I probably shouldn't have gone anywhere, but it was before we really knew what was going on. So I might have had it, but not officially and never tested positive. Neither is anyone in my family. Eric writes, I'm immunocompromised, so I need to wear a mask in indoor public places. COVID is still out there. I wonder, Eric, if you get the weird look, because I get the weird look sometimes if I mask up, where people are like, oh, one of those, right? And I just don't understand it because what does it matter if I walk in wearing a mask? Why does that make you feel off put? Do you feel like you should too because I am? Or like, why can you not just go on about your business even if I'm all masked up? I feel weird, says Heather, like something's missing if I don't have a mask on. I am not up to date on my boosters, Mindy, but thank you for the reminder. I'm going to be. I'm going to make the appointment today. Vilma says I wear a mask. I'll wear a mask in the fall because that's when you think that you're most likely to get something, flu, uh, COVID. I just think I'm paranoid, not sure if it's rational. It might not be rational. I mean, it depends. I've seen people wear masks at outdoor events where there's a lot of breeze and space between people. Probably your risk is very low in an outdoor setting. So, maybe that would be a moment where you would be being paranoid, but in the side, what's wrong with being safe rather safer than sorrier, right? Better safe than sorry. Natalie says, I figured if I didn't catch it from my own kids in two separate instances, when I was a main caretaker, then I'm likely not to catch it from someone at Costco. You ever walked by someone and you kind of felt their breath on you and you thought, this is the moment. This is the moment I get COVID. I just got way too close to that person. Someone just hugged me. Someone is standing too close to me. This is my moment. My sister is recently in an airport in Florida and no one was masked at all. And it was thundering and lightning outside. And it was kind of one of those everyone gathered into the airport, and she thought, this is it. This is where I get COVID. Heather says, I've had a wonderful 3.5 years without even catching a cold. It's not even just COVID that I don't want, it's all the cooties. Has been pretty nice. Although I got really sick this year. I don't know if you remember that. I lost my voice even for a while. So, yeah, maybe a mask could have served me well if I'd been more judicious in wearing it. Wes writing, I notice a lot of Chinese people have worn masks for years. Maybe it's a cultural thing even before COVID. That was it the bird flu? I remember seeing people because Chinatown was very close to where KGO was located. And I remember seeing, even now, people of Asian descent wearing masks, walking through the crosswalks and across the street in Chinatown. And I think what happened was with the bird flu, people got used to doing it and they just didn't stop. Greg wonders why it took so long for COVID to be discovered. It just came out of nowhere. I don't have an answer for you. Sam writes, I have not worn my mask for way more than a year. I have been COVID free to my knowledge, unless I didn't know. I am for masks if needed, though. Me being careless does not mean I am right. But again, Sam, I don't think you are. I think you're the majority, not the minority in this case. I think people are, after 2 years of masks, they were kind of itching to throw them off and just get back to normal and everyone be like it was. And you still have these variants popping through. And I'm knocking on wood that you remain COVID free and are healthy because I adore you and I want you to be okay. But yeah, you're dealing with the public a lot. So, but again, you've got people in your restaurants, they're not really masking up either. So Louis writes, I mask up when I'm having a cold, coughing in public places like a restaurant and a theater. I have for the month of May and part of June. Seems to be kind of abating now. I something blooms and I'm really allergic to it. So I have hay fever for like a month out of the year. And I'm sneezing and my eyes water and I'm miserable. Usually right around Mother's Day. Miserable. And people do look at you differently now if you sneeze or cough. They look at you askance like, "Uh-oh, here's somebody not masked up. Do they have something?" But I noticed when I was outdoors and I did mask up during allergy season, I felt better. I felt a little better because whatever, was breathing in, it wasn't, I guess it was being trapped in the mask or some of it was. So, there's something to be said for that. Mindy says, I have an adverse reaction to the mRNA booster. I still wear a mask and I'm socially distant. Most activities we do outside. I love the outdoor eating areas the parklets that blossomed up during COVID and are still around with us now. You see some cities now taking steps to make them permanent, even increasing sidewalk space to do so. In Petaluma, we have a riverfront that used to just be parking. Well, now much of the parking is dedicated to outdoor seating areas, which it's wonderful during the summer. And I think, I don't know about you, makes me feel much better to dine outside. I love it. Anonymous mask only on walks due to a neighbor being a looky loo and gossiping. I want privacy and not to feel like you're being watched. Huh, that's interesting. Outside is when you're probably the safest, but I guess you don't want them looking at your face. I don't know. I'd just stick my tongue out at them. Lady Beatrice, I've been masking up usually on campus since they would rather we get COVID than continue with hybrid learning. I don't wear masks where the crowd won't be as big or the area allows for space. That makes sense. It's really kind of a you have to think about it, where am I most at risk? Where is it that are the chances greatest that COVID is coming my way? And it may well be that you get COVID in the least likely place. Who knows? But all you can do is go into it with now that we know more, an educated guess about where your mask is going to help you the most. Heather writes, I don't understand what the big deal is and why people are so resistant to wearing masks. Why not protect ourselves? Even if the pandemic is, quote, over, there's still cold, flu, RSV, what have you. It's true. I say wear it. Lori says, I wonder whatever happened to the universal COVID vaccine that was to be against the common protein backbone rather than the spike protein. DARPA was supposedly working on this. I'll look into it, Lori. I'll look into that. I do remember reading about that. Chris says, I never wore a mask and I don't care if I die from the flu. We all got to go sometime. I think you're in the minority, Chris. I don't want to die from the flu or COVID. I think it sounds like a miserable way to go. And if I can prevent if I can prevent the people around me, my family, my friends, people just in my community from getting sick, I absolutely would. I wouldn't want to be selfish about that. Lady Beatrice, I got COVID before Christmas last year. Not keen to get it again. No, I hope you don't, but I'm glad you bounced back from it. And I hope there's no lasting effects. Mindy says it wreaks havoc on paranoid personality. Everything and everyone seems dangerous. Yeah. I think I would wear it on an airplane. We know so many people get sick on planes, even pre COVID. I thought it was, and I agree, because I asked my daughter to wear a mask on the airplane coming home from DC. But I thought it was that you were more at risk in the actual airport, right? Where you're sitting with all these people from all these different places converging at once, and that the airplanes have a really good ventilation system. But I agree. Airplanes, airports, yes, but a lot of people don't. My sister again was saying she's in Florida and trying to fly to, I think, North Carolina, and she said she might have been the only person in the whole airport with a mask on. Greg says I've had it and I'm fine now. Good, Greg. I'm glad to hear that. Murphy says I felt that. I'm going to get sick fear once with the flu in line for Santa pictures. I could hear that the person behind me was sick, and sure enough, 2 days later, so was I. Oh, you can you pinpoint that exact moment when the germs came flying your way. Oh. Chris says, I used to be a germaphobe when I was younger. It's a terrible way to live. But there is I would argue, Chris, a healthy respect for the germ where you don't have to be scared of it, but take reasonable precautions, right? Uh, Lady Beatrice says, I don't mind the masks if it keeps us safe, but I wish they would make them more breathable. Well, I don't know if we can do that. Mindy says, I used to see Asian women wearing masks daily at the bus stop, probably the diesel fumes. Perhaps. Or maybe it just became a cultural thing that it was accepted to do when you're out in public. Yeah, it's always the coffer behind me, says SF Tesla. It's true. Oh, a mask recommendation coming from Heather. Heroin sport masks, super comfortable, breathable, fun colors. You can wear them without feeling suffocated. I mean, I'm glad that I have the KN95 masks at my house. I feel like with fire season upon us, I don't have to worry. I always just have some. Used to be I would have to worry, okay, big fires here. Do I have enough masks? When are we going to get inundated with smoke, right? And now I have the masks. I grabbed a big handful and shoved them in my daughter's bag for Washington D.C. Um the lady Beatrice, ever since COVID, if I cough, my mom was like, "Why are you coughing? Why are you coughing? What's wrong with you?" Calvin, use an air purifier, change the filters too. Yep, we do that. During the pandemic, for 2 years, I never had allergies, but now they're back because you were wearing a mask religiously, right? I plan to emulate my colleague from Hong Kong who wore a mask every cold and flu season and whom I secretly and stupidly ridiculed. I really like not having a cold for 3 years, a mask when others are sick. Pretty smart. Although there's something to be said for, I guess, when you get sick, you get a cold, maybe it makes your immune system stronger so that you don't get it again. I would just rather not have it at all. Uh, Mindy, though, is looking forward to the art, wine, and outside street fairs. I don't think we need to wear a mask at those, unless you're going into a little tent that's all packed and the air is stagnant. Maybe a really hot day with no breeze, something. I would wear a mask when in confined spaces because my wife is immune compromised. It's not always the person that's wearing the mask that's being protected. That's true. In some cases, there's somebody else you're looking out for. Cheryl, I agree. The mask probably will never go away. I wear it here and there. I do see a lot of people still wearing it in San Francisco. I'm more cautious and do go to big events or closed events. Will you not go to an event because it's a COVID risk? Will you sit out instead of going to a concert or a sporting event or something that's indoors like a play because you're just not ready to go there yet? I mean, here we are. It's been a while, right? We're kind of have left the pandemic in the dust. Back to school, business is open, trying to get the tourism back. We're doing all this stuff. And yet, you know, if I don't know if our sample size here in the chat is an indication, but there's a lot of people who are still concerned, still masking, still doing this. We haven't talked about this in a while. Yeah, mask to protect others. That's true. Wes says, remember, DeSantis made it illegal to something. What, to wear a mask? Did he? Yeah. Germophobia, miserable. Um, my cat's sole caregiver. I can't die. I can't die. Oh yes, he made it illegal for companies to require masks for their employees. Yeah. COVID shut down a few street fairs for a few years. They are coming back this year. Ricky Aubert says, I don't want to be the last man standing. Oh, wait. Yes, I do. My sister died, says Scott, in that flu in January. You do not want to languish in that way. No, miserable. I'm so sorry, Scott. That's awful. Um, Heather says, I am that weirdo who was always disinfecting plain hotel surfaces, shopping carts, and wearing gloves to pump gas well before COVID. So the pandemic wasn't much of an adjustment. Well, now I'm the weirdo carrying the Clorox wipes in my purse. I put Clorox wipes in my daughter's suitcase. I said, yeah, wipe down the airline tray, wipe down, I gave her a little spray, squirt your hands when you come out of the museum in case you touched any railings. I don't know. Ricky Bear's never around people. Well, then I think you're pretty safe. Yeah, you might get ridiculed in Florida for wearing a mask due to the political climate there. It's true. Susie's still masking up in stores, gotten all the boosters. She can't remember the last time she had a respiratory infection. That's good. I remember Herman Cain, who was really anti-mask and a big Trump supporter. Then he goes to a Trump rally maskless. He probably got the COVID infection there that killed him. It's true. But yeah, so a lot of people still doing the mask, and John's still stocking up on the N95s in case we get smoke from a fire. When I don't wear a mask, he says there's a lot of smoke from wildfires and I get a headache. Yeah. And Star's still wearing masks in crowded places. I think it's smart. I think it's really smart. So keep with your masks. Do what you got to do. I think we don't look askance if unless someone's coughing at people who don't wear a mask. And if we do want to wear one, we hope that people just accept that we're a little more careful. And I tend to have been a little more careful than others, and you know, I don't know when I'm going to drop that, when I'm going to feel comfortable not being more careful. But again, with yet another uh, variant, the EU11 strain, it seems like why not be careful? I'd rather be careful than get sick. Yeah, Wes. If it makes you feel safe, do what makes you feel comfortable. That's right. That's right. And yes, Natalie, why haven't we? If we can make one for COVID, why can't we make one for the common cold? I completely agree. Another huge, huge thank you to Wes for the $5 super sticker. Of course, we are crowdfunded, so that's what we count on. And your help is so appreciated. And Wes, you're awesome. I so appreciate you. You can help support the Nikki Maduro Show, and the Nikki Maduro will be back with us tomorrow by kicking into the Patreon or the PayPal. And the links are at the NikkiMaduroShow.com. Go there right now. Check it out. And if you haven't clicked yet, please click the like button. Do it right now. There's 188 of you at this current moment. If you could all click the like button, I would so appreciate it. Again, Nikki Maduro will be back with us tomorrow, and thank you for hanging with me. I'm Kim McAllister. I will also be here tomorrow along with Nikki, and until I see you tomorrow, let's end the show with a little Jacob. How about that?
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You sprout like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.